way of putting the question is the God-shaped hole that I referenced in a previous video an evolved feature of what it means to be a human being? So that's what I'd like to discuss briefly today. I thought it deserves more than just a little text response in the comments section. So here we go. In a previous video, I mentioned my book, Born Believers, and my thesis in there about that humans naturally develop by virtue of just being human beings, growing up in natural human environments with minds that have sort of conceptual spaces, readiness to acquire certain kinds of ideas. And one of those spaces is for some kind of being that looks a lot like what we would call God. Now, I refer to that as sort of a conceptual hole or a God-shaped slot or a shape. Think of those shape sorter toys from preschool where you put in the triangle shaped one and the round shaped one and the square shaped one. You got to find the right shape to go in the right hole. Well, think of our minds as having those slots, those holes where the right shaped cultural inputs will go in and fit nicely. Or have to be crammed into that space. And so what I've suggested is we have lots of scientific evidence that I review in the book, Born Believers, scientific evidence for those slots being there, those shapes, particularly a God-shaped kind of space. Now, the question that I take it to the viewer is asking is, well, is that slot an evolved kind of slot? Or to put it in slightly different kind of language, is it an adaptation that we have this natural propensity to believe in something like a God? And the answer is sort of, well, I don't think that's quite the right way to talk about it, but that doesn't mean there isn't a connection with human evolution. So let me explain. The God-shaped conceptual space is a product of, at least on my view, lots of different gadgets, cognitive gadgets or devices of the human sort of mind that themselves may have been adaptations for other sorts of things. So what I'm saying is this God-shaped conceptual space isn't a single thing all by itself that is an adaptation, an evolutionary adaptation, but it's a product of lots of other evolutionary adaptations. So by nature, humans have lots of these different adaptations that are sort of, you might think of psychological or cognitive adaptations, that together they create a new space. And that new space looks a little bit like a God, okay? Or that is, we think that propensity to believe in something like God is a byproduct of other kinds of adaptations, but is not necessarily think of it as a genetic adaptation all by itself.